Hello, lovely booktubers. I'm Debs. Welcome back to my channel, Raina Reads Stuff. I am here in the book shack. It is a Sunday afternoon, and therefore I'm going to do my reading wrap up. My glasses are still wonky because I still don't have an arm on them, but I do have the microphone back, so hopefully the sound quality will be slightly better. I am going to start with the volume of books that I have been reading but haven't yet finished. So, these are all group reads. For Historathon, I am concentrating on Vikings at the moment. April, May and June are the period between 500 and 1500, which gives you a wealth of opportunities. So April is Viking month. I am reading Neil Price's The Children of Ash and Elm, A History of the Vikings. I am reading this with John David, Stephanie Cohen and Claire Shepherd. We are to discuss the first half in an hour or so. In fact, by the time this goes up, we'll probably be mid-discussion. I'm really enjoying this. There's a wealth of information in here. At the moment, the chapters have covered dealing with the dead. It's covered crossing borders. These are actually the names of the chapters. There's one called the social network, which is how each what's the word I'm looking for? Strata of people interacted with each other. Yeah, really good. Sticking with the Viking theme, I am reading this Valkyrie, The Women of the Viking World, and this is by Johanna Katrin Fridriksdottir. This I am reading with Vin and also with Stephanie Cohen. I am 3 chapters in. It's quite an easy read. It's written in a different style to this. I sort of feel that this is the more scholarly of the two. But it is extremely interesting. Both mention quite a lot of the sagas. In fact, they mention a couple of the ones that I've already read, which is nice because I get a deeper perspective on what they're talking about then. The biggest one is the group read of Les Miserables. There's 2 group reads going on. I think they're sort of linked. I'm just over halfway through. I'm about to start volume 4, volume 4 of 5, which is page 739, and this edition goes up to 1304 pages. So I'm going down the other side now. I love this. I think this is great. There are bits that are easier to read than others. When we are within the story, I can fly through these pages. There's other bits where long explanations are included, and we have long explanations of things like Waterloo. I enjoyed it. I found myself comparing it to the writing of the Battle of Austerlitz in War and Peace. I think the battle scenes in War and Peace won. I mean, much earlier on in the book, there's an entire chapter on 1817, and it literally lists people who did things in 1817, and they're real people who did real things. So there's a lot of sections of the book where you get a um, historical detail that is placing, I suppose, it's setting the scene for the rest of the story. Looking forward to reading some more of that though. As for the books that I have actually finished this week, as part of Spring into Adventure, and I found myself promoted to co-host this week, which I was delighted about. We read H Rider Haggard's She as the group read. I have read this once before. I am thinking it was probably when I was in my mid-teens. So we are talking 40 plus years ago, probably. At least around, yeah, at least 40 years ago. I love this book. Um, I remembered the story. I knew what happened. I knew what was going to happen at the end. Um, I'd forgotten a lot of the detail, and the detail is fun. Um, there's a couple of things that I really like about this. I know this sounds ridiculous. I enjoy the footnotes. This is written as a manuscript of a journey that is taken because um, our our man Holly, who is, well, he describes himself as ugly and also very hairy, but also very strong. When he arrives in Africa and he comes to know a group of ancient people. The leader of that section of the ancient people call him Baboon constantly, um, because he is quite short, quite ugly, and quite hairy. But this manuscript has been written by him. He has left it with someone he met just once, who um, is a publisher, in the hope that that person will publish it. And so what you read is the manuscript that he has delivered to this person with little footnotes at the bottom. And I love those footnotes. I think they're great. This is the story of Holly, who, whilst he is at university awaiting a fellowship, he's in his mid-20s. A friend of his dashes by one evening and says, I'm going to die tonight. And I have a son who's 5. I need you to take this box and also take possession of my son, who I've never seen. And, well, he's seen rarely. His mother died in childbirth. Son is called Leo. And I need you to look after Leo. I need you to teach him Arabic and I need you to teach him Greek. And when he's 25 years old, I need you to open this box with him and let him see the contents and read the letter and decide what he's going to do. And he takes a little bit of persuading, but not an awful lot. And then he just says, yes, he'll take the son. He and his foster son get on incredibly well. He plays by the rules. He does everything that his friend has asked him to do, because his friend did in fact die that night. When they open the box, there is information in there which suggests that Leo is descended from an Egyptian, an ancient Egyptian, and there is a quest ensues to find she. There's sort of general directions, but they have to find their own way there. They're in East Africa. This was published in, I should know this because we were discussing it the other day. 1887. It was written in 1886, published in 1887. And I just don't think you can beat these Victorian adventure books. Yes, the language on occasions is something that we wouldn't use. It is very typical of that time, and some of the attitudes are very typical of that time. But this is a rollicking adventure. It is great fun, and I absolutely loved it. Next, I read Staring Directly at the Eclipse by Henry Normal. This is part of my read at least one book of poetry a month. It's a book of poetry. It's also investigate authors from Nottingham and why Nottingham is a UNESCO City of Literature. Well, Henry Normal is from Nottingham. I love these poems. I love the poetry of Henry Normal. I met him a couple of years ago at the Poetry Festival in Nottingham, and he is just a lovely, lovely man. He spent a lot of his life in television or behind the scenes. He has acted. He's done stand-up comedy. He's written things like The Royal Family. He has had a production company with Steve Coogan that has produced things like Gavin and Stacey and Red Dwarf. He's a very good poet. I like his poetry very much because he writes about normal things. If you're interested in hearing some, I read 3 of his poems for Poetry Thursday. But he writes about one of the ones I didn't read. He wrote a poem. He now lives in Brighton, and there was a particular seagull who used to defecate on his windows, the windows of his house, and he's written a poem to this seagull. It just sort of shows you that nothing is out of bounds when it comes to poetry, because the poetry themselves are really quite thought-provoking, and yet some of them are about ridiculous things. Once again, I've had a couple of long journeys this week. I have been using audiobooks to entertain me on the way and the way back. So, audiobooks, I've finished 2 Ruth Downie books. I sort of thought they might be spring into adventure, but they're not really adventure stories. They're more crime stories, but they're based in ancient Roman times. So these tie in with the No Place Like Rome event, which was going on last month and is continuing this month. I'll put all the details of the events as usual below. So I read Prima Facie and Caveat Emptor, and these deal with a medic called Russo, who is a Roman from Gaul one of the books was based in England, one of the books was based in Gaul. He's married to a Breton called Tella, um, who does all sorts of very unwifely things. He tells her to do something, she does the opposite. I love the relationship. There's a lot of humour in these books, but there's also a crime. So he's investigating the death. Oh no, in the first one, Prima Facie, he is investigating the disappearance of two tax collectors, brothers, who have disappeared off the face of the earth, as has the tax money that has been sent to uh, the Romans from the town of St. Albans. So he has to go to St. Albans to try and track down these two tax collectors. In the meantime, his wife befriends what she thinks is the wife of one of the tax collectors, who turns out to be the lover of one of the tax collectors, who it has left her husband, who just happens to be the magistrate of St. Albans, to move in with her tax collector lover, has got pregnant by him, and has a baby by him. They're funny, they're complicated. The plot line's complicated. There's lots of twists and turns. Thought they were great. Another event this month, and one that I am also co-hosting with James from Quentin Curious Volumes, is the Gabriel event. This week we're reading Hedda Gabler, but for the fact I sort of snuck it in at the end of last week. I have not read this before. Henrik Ibsen had it on audiobook. It's very short. It's about an hour and a half long, I suppose. I really enjoyed it. Now, I'm not going to tell you, I'm not even going to pretend to tell you what it's about because it's being read this week. All I will say is, I don't like her. She's not a nice person. All other chat remains, well, it'll have to remain secret till next week. Final audiobook that I listened to, again, it was quite a short one, about an hour and a half again. Noel Coward's Fallen Angels, which um, I hadn't heard of it. I found it on Audible and thought, that might be fun. It's the story of two women. They've been friends since they were 8 years old. They are married. Their husbands are friends. They play golf together. Off the husbands go on a golfing trip, and one of the friends visits the other in a mild state of panic because a man who is French, no, he's a Frenchman that they met in Italy, that they both had affairs with before they were married. He contacts them and says, "Hello, I'm coming to London." And this madcap scenario goes on where they decide to run away, then they decide they're going to see him, then they fall out because they think one of them's going to see him and the other one isn't. The husbands come home early. It's a complete farce, literally a farce, and I found it really amusing. I don't know that I've read any other Noel Coward. I ought to, but I thoroughly enjoyed that. Was that it? I think that might be it for this week. Next week, I'm hoping. I doubt very much whether I'll have finished Les Mis. I'm hoping to have finished The Children of Ash and Elm and also Valkyrie. Valkyrie's actually quite an easy read. For Spring into Adventure, I intend to read this, A High Wind in Jamaica, because we are looking at consuming our adventure in a different form. Um, and I know this isn't a different form, this is actually a book which I intend to read, but I've managed to find the film on YouTube free of charge in its entirety. High Wind in Jamaica, 1965, starring Anthony Quinn, who I remember as being brilliant as a pirate. This book is about a group of children who are living in Jamaica. There's a hurricane in Jamaica. Their house falls down. Their mother thinks that they are running around like animals and ought to be dispatched off to England to have some proper schooling. So she sticks them on a boat, sends them over to England. The boat doesn't get very far before it's boarded by pirates, and the pirates inadvertently sail off in their ship with all the children on board. Um, I loved the film when I was a kid, and I'm really looking forward to reading it again. Right, so this week I've got a lot of tags to catch up with. Five, I think. So I'm going to try and get those done today and tomorrow and spread them out during the week. I am very conscious of the fact that I still haven't done my Historathon Q1 roundup, so I've got to get that sorted this week. Reading wise, like I say, I hope to get both of those Viking books done. Oh, I tell you the other thing I read. I discovered DelphiClassics.com. I've downloaded all sorts of books. Loads and loads and loads of them, and they were priced between nothing and I think £2.49. But when you download an author's books, you can, and some of them it's the collected works, and some is the completed works. The completed works include sometimes um, literary criticism of some of those works and or biographies, autobiographies. And so I read for People April an article that came from a book about women writers, and it was a very short biography of Frances Hodgson Burnett, who wrote things like The Little Princess and The Secret Garden and Little Lord Fauntleroy. And that was quite interesting too. I've got some others I want to pick up for People April for next week. So, yeah, finish the Viking books. Get a chunk of Les Mis read. I probably won't finish that. A couple of People April books and some more adventures. So that's what I'm going to be doing. What are you up to? I hope you've been reading some good things. Let me know down below if you're taking part in any of these events. If you're taking part in Gabriel, I will tell you properly what I thought about Hedda Gabler next week. Thank you for popping by. Please like and subscribe. If you'd like to let me know what you've been reading, or if you've read any of the books I've mentioned, leave a chat. Be nice to chat. And I will speak to you very soon. Bye for now.